So to close all the other sections that we have here on our development environment, we can just simply double click the file that we want to focus on. So I'll just double click this. And now as you can see, we have a full view of this design workspace. And I can zoom in further by using these zoom buttons over here. So this section right here is our palette. Okay, this is the items that we can drag and drop onto our screen or our view right here. So as an example, if I wanted to add a button to our screen, I can just simply drag this button and place it somewhere on our screen, just like that. We can also add some more text to our screen by adding this text view. We can add a switch over here if we want. And there's several more things that we can add. So we can add some more text, some different variations of buttons, some widgets, for example, a video player, an image or a picture. We can add some containers and layouts. We can also add some additional things like a map if we wanted to. So as you can see, there's a lot of things that we can place on our screen. And the thing with Android is that there are so many different types of screens and screen sizes and screen orientations that our app needs to look good on. And right now, even though I've placed these items on our screen like this, if I was to rotate our screen, for example, to make it a landscape view, you notice that the items are not in the same place that I placed it originally. And that is because these new items that I've put on my screen have no constraints, meaning there's nothing that is holding it in place. So for instance, our hello world here, as you can see, you see the squiggly blue arrows pointing to each side of the screen. So you can imagine these squiggly blue lines as some type of stretchy elastic. There's an elastic pulling it up, there's another one pulling it down, and then there's some pulling it left and right. So if it's being pulled on all directions, it would stay in the center. But now imagine I cut the elastic that is right here. So I can cut it by removing this thing right here, the bottom constraint. So if I click this right here, you can see that I have removed that constraint from here. So now this hello world is pulled to the top. And if I was to cut this one right here as well to the right, as you can see, it's pulled to the left. And to add a constraint, we can essentially click the circle and then pull it towards the direction that we want it to be constrained to. And that's how we add the constraint. So I'm going to add the right constraint back again. And there we go. The hello world is centered once again. So now let's add a constraint to make this button bottom centered, okay? So I'm going to pull this to the very bottom. And then I'm going to add a constraint to the left and the right. There we go. So now it's bottom centered. So let's add a constraint to this switch, okay? We're going to make it top, and then we're going to center it just like the other ones. And additionally, we're going to pull it towards the top of the hello world, just like that. And now for this text view, I'm just going to go ahead and delete it since I don't need it anymore. So now if I was to rotate my screen, as you can see, it maintains the constraints. So regardless of the device size or the device orientation, it would always look like this, or it'll always have these constraints. Let's go ahead and run our app just to see how this looks now. So as you can see, we have a switch here that we can toggle on and off. And we have a button here that we can click. So let's go ahead and do some more interesting things with our first app. So first, I'm going to close this emulator by clicking this highlighted text. And now let's work on our app. So what I want to do now is to have some type of text field here. And whatever I enter inside the text field, I want that to be displayed instead of this hello world. So I'm going to delete this switch here, and I'm going to add a text field. To do that, I'm going to click text. I'm just going to click plain text. Okay, so I'm going to put that below our hello world here. And for our hello world, I'm going to remove the bottom constraint here, this one. So I'm going to go ahead and cut that so that it's at the top. And now this is going to be in the center. So I'll constrain it to the bottom of the hello world text and to the top of our button. And then once again, I'm going to center it by constraining it both to the left and right. But now our hello world is literally at the very top of the screen, but I want to add some space on the top here. So to do that, you'll notice that there's these drop downs here. And this is basically the padding or the margins that you want to leave at the beginning of the constraint. So click hello world, and I'm going to add some space at the top. For the button, I'll do the same. I'll add some space at the bottom. Let's say instead of 24, I'm going to make it 32. Keep in mind that you can always adjust this number manually. So if I wanted to make it 50, I can just manually type 50. And now the space between the bottom constraint and that item is about 50 display pixels. So far, it looks okay. Let's go ahead and run our program one more time just to see how it's looking. And here it's showing me that the app is already running. And it's asking me if I want to terminate the one that it's already running so that I can replace it with the new changes that I've made. So I'm going to hit terminate. But before I do that, I'll just check don't ask again, because it'll get annoying if every single time we run our app, we get this message. So there we go. We have our text over here, and then we have a field here that we can enter some content into, just like this. So what I want to do is once I enter the content, when I click this button over here, whatever I entered as the content here should be displayed here instead of the hello world. So we're going to write some code that will allow that to happen.